Do you think we should charge people to use public loos, public conveniences, or WCs as they used to be called? If we did charge, maybe more of them could be open and available. If you're someone who has to think about, can I go shopping? Can I go into town? Because there are just no lavatories available at all. Then you really might want to give us a call, 0207 862 2222. There's been a dramatic drop in council-run public loos across the country over the past 2 decades. And there's absolutely no statutory obligation on local authorities to provide those facilities. So what if they did decide to start charging us to use them? Maybe it would simply mean more lavatories would be available. What about the people who can't afford it, though? The most common charge for toilets in the UK is 20p per visit. You remember people used to talk about paying a penny. It used to be a penny to use them. But this can go up to as much as £1. So should more councils charge to use public loos, or do you think they should be prioritising providing free public loos? We'll start with you, Nicola.
I mean, you'd have to pay me to use one, I think. I mean, no, I'm being serious.
Why? Because you don't think they'd be nice and clean?
Yeah, I live in a really lovely village and there is public toilets and they're free. And I had been at the park with the boys and I was really desperate for the loo, and I thought I'll have to run in, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. But maybe if they charge people, they could then make them nicer. So maybe, maybe they should. But yeah, I mean,
there might be some people watching thinking, the luxury of not using them is just not open to me. We've all got to do what we've got to do when we've got to do it. And some people have conditions, and sometimes as you get older, you need to do it more and more and more often. And if there is not a functioning public loo anywhere near you and you're dependent on, McDonald's or other fast food outlets, or you have to go into a pub and it's so embarrassing, or there just is no loo, it can be absolute torture. People can be stuck at home because of it.
Of course, I'm pretty shocked that councils don't have a statutory duty to provide these public bathrooms. It is, an essential function of life. It's not always a nice experience, but it's something we all have to do, especially not a nice experience in a public loo. But I think if the difference is between there being a public loo available that you have to pay for, or 20p, maybe even £1. Some people might not be able to afford it, but most people can. Or there not being a public loo at all. I know I would pick the public loo that you were charged for, because sometimes you've just got to go. Mm-hmm. And 20p to most people is not very much. Maybe there could be exemptions if people are on benefits or things like that. Maybe you've got special cards or something. But if the choice is no loo or loo that you pay for, loo that you pay for every time.
Yes, and a fear, of course, what I haven't mentioned is when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
God, I used to live on the 3rd floor of a block of flats with no lift. By the time I got down the 3 flights, I needed to go. And I'd have to go all the way up again, the 3 flights to go. You can imagine that cycle. Yeah. So when you're pregnant, gosh, you need a loo, and you need a loo to be available. And it needs to be available right then and there, doesn't it, often?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I remember when I was pregnant, I used public loos all the time. Exactly. And I remember the ones that were paid for, I remember the ones that weren't. And of course, the ones where you did have to pay, yes, they were nicer than the other ones. But I just don't think that it should be an across-the-board charge, that you should force people to have to pay to use the toilet. I don't think it's very fair. I think there should be statutory free public loos, especially in places like parks, when you've got little ones, when you've got the kids and you're in the park perhaps all day and you're thinking to yourself, where are we going to use the loo? In a lot of places, like restaurants, you mentioned, pubs, things like that, they won't let you use a toilet unless you buy something.
Or you just sneak in, that's what I do.
Oh, yeah. But this is the thing, if you've got little kids in tow, they're not often going to be quiet, and you can't necessarily often take them into all these different places. So I think that public loos should be free, especially in places like parks.
Let's get kind of down and basic about this subject, because it is, as you say, not something to be ashamed of or embarrassed by. It's something we all have to do lots of times a day. But I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but what I'm seeing is much more evidence of people just doing what they want to do right there in the street. Sometimes people who hardly turn their back even, not even creeping into a corner or anything, but kind of almost right there. This used to be the sort of thing you might see in other countries, but you didn't really see here very often. But now I'm finding you are seeing that. And also people who say that, people will relieve themselves right next to their front garden, or, against their wall, or this kind of thing, and you've got kids with you, and the whole thing's turned quite feral.
Yeah, that wild wheeze. I see lots of people.
You're seeing it too,
Wild weeing. I've when my kids were little, if we were in a park and there was no toilet, I'd say, okay, go over by the bush. But you don't want to see a grown man do it, do you?
Definitely
You know,
not, no.
Absolutely. So yeah, more toilets to be readily available would be a good idea.
Do you see that though, Albie, as a kind of lack of decorum, that people have kind of lost touch with what's appropriate to do in public and what's good manners and, you know, how to behave? You know, you see people, even on a crowded high street, I've seen it. So, you know, this idea that, you know, it's a little child and you say, go over by the bushes and what can you do? You've got no choice. Every parent's had to do that, of course. But a grown man, it's usually a man, very rarely a woman in the street.
We say people, but we mean men.
Yeah.
I think of all the different people that I've seen weeing on the street, I've only never seen a woman do it once, and I was horrified. Yeah. It was outside Westfield at Shepherd's Bush Tube Station, literally, and I was just like, my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before. But men do this sort of thing all the time. It is a men's thing. You go down an alley, up next to a tree, whatever. It's a lot easier for us to do it. Do I think it's a sign of a lack of decorum? I think men would still pee in public if public loos were free.
I agree.
Because men just feel it's like, well, it's convenient. I can just do it anywhere. I can just go around a corner, whip it out and do my business. Whereas it's a lot harder for a woman to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know that making public loos free would stop the men that pee in public from peeing in public.
Do you think the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's just, you know, some men are just like, you know what, it's just easier for me. Instead of looking for a public loo, like they won't even look for it. They literally will just go down an alleyway, up against, unless they've got antibac hand gel. But
well, if they're weeing in the street, they've not got.
I mean, if you're watching this at home, I wonder whether you just are appalled at the lack of facilities where you live or at your nearest town. Maybe you find that it actually stops you going into town. You know, people ask, why is the high street dead? Maybe you could give them this reason, because there are no public loos to use. Maybe you've even had to ask at your local supermarket, which is well embarrassing. I've had to do it. I think when I was pregnant, I felt they made me feel thoroughly embarrassed about something I really couldn't help. You know, I wonder whether you have. Do get in touch. It's 0207 862 2222 to put your spoke in here and tell us what you think about it. Maybe you work at a local council. You can't believe that there is no obligation on councils because, as you quite rightly say, Albie, it's not something you only do occasionally. It's something everybody does dozens of times a day. So, you know, why is there not a legal obligation for councils to provide us with loos that function?
I suppose the councils would argue that the amount of money they're having to spend on public services is just going up over time. A lot of it is due to things like social care for both children and also for adults, tends to be older adults, and, you know, council tax is going up and up and up. No one wants to pay more council tax. And so there are some things that we had to pay for independently of
You know what?
council tax.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do hear from people who run their own businesses and who ring, because I've done this show on the radio, talked about this for many, many years, and often people ring and say, look, you know, we run a small cafe. It's not a public lavatory. Yeah. We really can't maintain the loo at the kind of standard of cleanliness and hygiene we would like our customers to enjoy, and at the same time have people just trooping in from the street to use the loo perpetually. That's not a facility that we're kind of subsidising the council by offering, which you can totally understand.
But often...
So let's quickly talk to Amanda. She's on the line in Lancashire. Thanks for calling, Amanda. What's the story with loos around where you are?
I think we only have one now on the bus station.
Yeah.
Well, two. They charge, I think, 20 pence for that one. And we haven't actually had public loos council room ones for quite a long time. And they used to charge even back then, which is over 10 years ago. So it is poor. I'm technically a little bit luckier in the fact that I have a card issued to me that says I can't wait.
Oh, do you? Excellent. Where do you get that from, Amanda, if you need one of those? People might be interested in that.
Yeah, it's I'll just say it's from the Bowel UK site.
Okay.
I suffer from IBS, so I can have an attack at any bladder and bowel UK it is. And I suffer with IBS, so it's literally getting to the loo. So you can. I got this from the hospital, mine, but you can apply for it.
Let me ask you something, Amanda. Have you ever had to show the card and found people, you know, hostile to it or unreceptive, or is everybody always like, oh, of course, please do use the loo?
I've been all right. I've only had to show it once, luckily. Right. And the young lady didn't quite know what to do. So she went to a colleague, and the colleague just said, just take her to the toilets. Yeah. So I have to use the company toilets. But I also have a radar key.
A radar key, yes, I've heard about this radar key, and that will get you into various loos. Amanda, thanks so much for ringing. Really appreciate it. Lots of love to you. Let's go to Lila in London. Lila, I think you're phoning to make an absolutely excellent point. How do you feel about this?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we have to pay for the toilets. I mean, it's not a luxury, it's a basic right. We can't wait for nature with your wallets. I mean, think about the homeless people who need to go to the toilet. They can't just do your business out in public. That's outrageous. It's bad for the community, and it could even bring diseases. I think they should really just make it free and make it fair for everyone.
I mean, she makes a valid point, and there are lots of, I mean, it depends where you live in the country, but quite near where I live, there are lots of sort of, I think you'd call them, temporary encampments of people sleeping in tents and everything, often on very busy sort of verges of busy London traffic. And there are no facilities anywhere near there because nobody would expect anyone to be living anywhere near there. So what on earth is going on with that? You can't even bear to think about, really, can you?
And where do those people use their facilities?
Well, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm assuming in the street, because where else could they possibly go? Yeah. What you definitely don't see is anybody cleaning up or spraying or anything like that. So Lila, I mean, I think you make an excellent point. Is what you're really thinking that councils ought to be obligated to provide lavatories?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it shouldn't be a kind of optional thing, because as Lila quite rightly says, none of us has an option about whether we need to go or not. We need to go. It's not optional. Quite good. Excellent point. Let's go to Lanny, who's in Leicestershire. Hi, Lanny.
Oh, hi, Vanessa. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. So my name is Lanny King Daniels. I'm calling from Leicester. I think my opinion is that we should make it available for the homeless people, because I've seen quite a lot of homeless people around our city. They have nowhere to do their business, and they end up doing on the street. And it's not a good moral for the new generation and the youngsters walking in the street.
And at present, I just said, near where I live, it's a similar situation, and I don't see anybody cleaning it. And I could understand why cleaners wouldn't want to, street cleaners. My gosh, I'm sure they draw the line. But you don't see anyone spraying or sanitising or anything like that. Do you see anything like that, Lanny, where you are?
Absolutely, and because I've got passion for my community, sometimes I have to clean it myself, and I'm involving my community because I'm a pastor myself. I pastor a church in Leicester, and my church is in Leicester. I'm also a nurse practitioner, and I feel like we have responsibility as professionals to make sure that people like yourself to speak out for the less privileged people. I also feed the homeless people, and they are always very forgotten. I think we should bring our attention to them.
Gosh, what an extraordinarily amazing person you are, though, to take on that job. You would have thought it was the job for people, I'm not joking, in sort of hazmat suits with chemical cleaners that are, on a spray thing that you don't have to put too close to your body. Lanny, you must be a remarkable person. My gosh, wow. Thank you so much for calling. A real privilege to talk to you. An amazing response to that question. I didn't think we were going to hear that, did you? Amazing. Thank you very much indeed.